This is a battle in the Use It and Lose It tournament. We've made it to the semifinals. It's been a massive tournament. Unfortunately, I myself had to pull out due to time constraints. I just couldn't find the time to set up games when most people are available to play, because I am usually in a different time zone. Playing tournaments more often than not means playing very late at night for me, or very early in the morning. And the problem is I work nights, and in the morning there's a lot of kid stuff to get done, so or I'm just sleeping because I've been working all night. So it's been very hard for me to schedule games. So I just pulled out and trolley set in a replacement in my tournament, because I would have just stalled the entire tournament by waiting for a good time to play. But anyway, this battle is between AK and Blood Leopard. Epirus versus Rome. On a fairly forested map. Let's have a look at Epirus' army here. Epirus has Thessalians. I would be surprised if there weren't 4 Thessalians, and indeed there are. 1 Hellenic Royal Cavalry, 2 Tarentines. Tarentines have been one Tarentine. Tarentines have been very popular in this tournament. Mercenary Etruscan Hoplites, Italian Swords and Samnites on the flanks here. Same thing on the other side here. Mercenary Samnites, Etruscan Hoplites, Mercenary Italian Swords. And for slingers, we have, let's see, 4 standard slingers and 2 Illyrian levies. If this army is able to deal with Rome, I would be amazed, just amazed. For Rome, we have Equites, a total of 4 Equites. Very standard formation when facing a Hellenic faction. This legionary cohort, Evocati, veteran legionaries, Evocati, veteran legionaries, Evocati, legionary cohort. For spears, only Vigiles. So the legionary cohort, you won't see legionary cohort being used, because the veteran legionaries and the Evocati, their melee attack is just so much higher than the legionary cohort. But legionary cohort, they are a decent unit as long as they are not fighting up against barbarian mid-tier infantry. And of course Epirus is, in terms of infantry, Epirus is definitely on the weaker side. The mercenary Samnites, they have a nice charge bonus, but their melee attack is fairly low, and their weapon damage is also fairly low. Hoplites, mercenary Tuscan Hoplites, can do a decent enough job if they manage to get their charge and use Hoplite phalanx, but in most cases, in most scenarios, Rome should steamroll Epirus. However, losing Rome in the semi-finals, not having access to Rome later on, is a huge problem. Because Rome is a very, very safe faction. Now, Heracles is already in the finals, and he has Rome left. He has his power factions. He has Boii and Rome. Tylis, not so much a power faction as Boii and Rome, I think. They're just a less diverse faction, and under these rules you just can't melee spam like you would usually be able to using Tylis. So Epirus seems more than content at just hanging out in the forest here, and this is a bit weird because both players are designated attackers, so both players have to try to engage, and Epirus isn't engaging here. I'll just fast forward to see if Epirus starts moving at some point. No movement yet. Now Epirus starts moving. So I take that as a clear sign that Epirus wants to engage in the forest, which is a bit odd, to be honest. Epirus has a lot of skirmishers, a lot of slingers, and they're just not going to be effective here in the forest. Epirus also has shock cavalry, which is not going to do as well in the forest as they would do in the open. So I don't quite understand the thought process behind Epirus going. And then basically the entire map is forest. But staying deep in the forest for Epirus is a bit of an odd choice, I think. Tarentines have already killed an Equite. But Rome has wisely, I think, gone, on this map, gone heavy on the heavy on the infantry and quite light on the cheap equites. Decent enough, more than enough to deal with citizen cavalry. And if they get the charge on the Thessalians, they can do well. If they get charged by Thessalians, they won't do well. But they have a 15 bonus versus large, which makes them a very decent anti-cavalry unit. A bit low morale on them, but they are certainly better than citizen cavalry. So Epirus, having a lot of skirmish, probably wants to stay at range, but there are Balearic slingers as well for Rome, and the Balearic slingers are going to eat these slingers alive. So Epirus is in a sort of a difficult situation, because Epirus doesn't want to engage Rome prematurely, whereas Rome can comfortably stay at range and damage key units. So firing at Illyrian levies, probably not the best choice. Thessalians, so they are not taking any fire now. Thessalians, a great target for Balearic slingers. And looks like they are firing on the Illyrian levies here. Now the Thessalians are taking fire. That's the ideal target for Balearic slingers, but the Balearic slingers have to pull back because Epirus is pushing hard here. Coming in with mercenary Italians from the flanks, pulling back from the equites. And Illyrian levies not taking any fire now. I can't see any units taking fire at the moment. The slingers are not firing. It's very hard to play in a forest like this. So the equites have charged the mercenary Italian swords. The vigiles come in, but even the vigiles... The equites are only medium, so they didn't do any damage here didn't cause any casualties. And they now get the central engagement, first coming in with the Thessalians, then the mercenary Etruscan hoplites. This is how Epirus needs to win this, and the Thessalians cannot take too many casualties. So nice frontal charge there. We'll see if it's worth it, because the Thessalians have taken a lot of damage, and not having late game cav is going to be very, very problematic for Epirus. Thessalians charging in again against the veteran legionaries. They are causing substantial casualties, but as you can see, the Illyrian levies losing very quickly. The mercenary Etruscan hoplites and the mercenary Samnite warriors are getting good charges here, but they're getting charges on a mix of vigiles and veteran legionaries. So Epirus using the cavalry very aggressively, because Epirus knows that the infantry isn't going to be able to win on its own, so they need to support, while Rome can sort of hang back. And target the Thessalians when they're coming in like this, but getting a good charge here with the equites. But this Thessalian is going to get the charge on the equites, and the equites should start dropping really quickly when fighting two Thessalians here. But everything is less effective for cavalry in the forest, so the cavalry engagements are probably going to take longer. The Tarentine cavalry get caught by the equites here. Not going to like that one bit. Italian swords doing damage to the vigiles, although they are in square, although their morale is being boosted. Now the square broke, and so the Italian swords are going to win that quite handsomely. Thessalians coming in to support the Tarentines here and get the equites, but this is where the battle is won or lost in the central engagements here. So the mercenary Etruscan hoplites, although they got support, the Evocati is just eating them alive. Evocati getting charged here by Thessalians frontally. And the Balearic slingers are still alive, because the Thessalians have been fighting cavalry, they have been fighting infantry. And none of the important Roman infantry units are in trouble yet. The Evocati cohort is just hammering the mercenary Samnite warriors. So I don't see Epirus winning. Well, they are actually winning here against the legionary cohort. And the legionary cohort is significantly worse than the Evocati and the veteran legionaries. Slingers getting a few kills, nothing massive yet. The Tarentines getting destroyed by the equites, even though they got some help from the Thessalians. In the center, the Hellenic Royal Cavalry has done a lot of damage actually. fighting some vigiles at the moment. He probably doesn't want to do that for too long in the forest. The Roman general is about to die here from Thessalian cavalry. Very hard to see what's going on in the forest here. The Thessalian cavalry has managed to get into the auxiliary Balearic slingers, which is very, very important. It looks like the Epirus's left flank has crumbled completely, whereas Epirus is doing better in the center. Here we're having an Avocati cohort losing hard against both a mercenary Samnite and a mercenary Etruscan Hoplite. Epirus getting the auxiliary Balearic slingers off the field. So these Thessalians have been used really well, I think. Both in charging infantry and taking care of those important skirmishers. Here come the Equites in against the Slingers. The Slingers can just stand and fire here, and the Thessalians are going to win by attacking the Equites in the rear. So this is a very surprising development here. The Roman army is actually crumbling under the onslaught of Epirus. And that's making quite a statement in the first battle, being able to defeat Rome, arguably the most powerful faction in the game, with a Hellenic faction. Now, under the use it, lose it rules, the Roman army is weakened because it can't bring the very important double line of Hastati and legionaries. And that's what makes Rome so powerful. When you just have the legionary troops, just the veteran legionaries, just the Evocati, that can be dealt with when there are only 8 melee units. But we'll see, the game isn't over yet, although I'm tempted to say the game is definitely over. Just a few Roman infantry units holding, getting rear charged here by Thessalian Cav. Here the veteran legionaries are going to be able to do well against the mercenary Etruscan Hoplite, so looks like all of the Epirus infantry is going to die here. And there's only cavalry left, and this is something you see quite a lot in these matchups versus Rome. The skirmishers are alive for the opposing faction. Some cavalry is alive because Epirus brings more skirmishers, Epirus brings more cav. And then there are these few infantry units left. They should go into the forest here. I don't know how much ammo is left on the archers and the slingers, but late game they could go for... actually, there were 2 slingers and 2 archers. So I thought there were 4 slingers, but 2 slingers and 2 archers. Veteran legionaries taking Thessalian off the field, very important. But Rome has problems with the balance of power. Legionary cohort here, chasing after the archers and slingers to stop them from firing. But that means that there's always going to be a unit that's able to fire. So in this case, I think it would be a lot better for Rome to just defend in the forest. Spread out as thin as possible and defend, because chasing after the units like this, they're never going to catch them. They are going to be open, using the war cry to reduce the morale of the legionary cohort with the Hellenic Royal Cavalry General. He's gotten a lot of killing done. Moving in again with the Thessalians. They are going to take friendly fire now, probably. Nope. The slingers are firing over here. So using flaming to break the legionary cohorts, and that actually broke the legionary cohorts. So the Hellenic general, the Epirus general, is still alive, still on the field. Having cavalry skirmishers late game versus Roman infantry is such a good time for the player that commands them. And now the Romans going into attacking Testudo here, increasing missile block, trying to weather the storm of Epirus. But since Epirus has so many units left, Epirus is going to be able to surround the Roman formation and be able to fire into, like, firing into the flanks here. They're going to cause massive casualties to the Romans. But the Romans are in the forest, and attacking Testudo in the forest, potentially very, very effective. The problem is, though, that they are not going to be able to protect all angles. And these guys still have ammo left. Let's see, these guys still have ammo left. Yeah, so all of the skirmish units have ammo left. I don't know how much, but there is ammo left. And all of the Roman units are concerned over the casualties they have sustained. They are also very close to losing due to the balance of power. So army losses. Charging out valiantly. But these guys are one cav charge away from being dead. Just getting the charge here actually against the archers. But they really shouldn't be able to catch the fresh slingers here. Tired, very heavy infantry isn't going to be able to do much. Again, using war cry against the veteran legionaries. And another rear charge, very nicely done here. Very nicely done. A bit of friendly fire, I don't know that it's needed at this point, but Rome has lost. Using flaming shot to try and break the Roman morale, losing decisively, army losses, even Evocati cohort are going to break under those odds. So AK, very nicely done there, defeating Rome with Epirus. And it's not necessarily that the Roman army was a particularly bad one, but also, yeah, the rules were broken here. 5 equites, not 4 equites. So I don't know what they did about that, whether they counted that battle or they didn't. When the losing player breaks the rules, the player that wins usually doesn't call for rematch. However, there could be an issue if, let's say that AK didn't notice this and he loses and he notices it afterwards at the battle result screen. Then of course the battle could be replayed, but the disadvantage should go to the player who breaks the rules in all cases. So, but in this particular instance, it worked out well for AK, and in no small part due to the way he used his cavalry. His cavalry does a lot better than the Roman cavalry. The Roman cavalry was too slow to respond, which meant that the Roman infantry units got double teamed in many cases by first cavalry, frontal cavalry charge, and then the follow-up with infantry, which enables the infantry to do reasonably well. And I'd say that the legionary cohort, bringing legionary cohort is a bit risky, bringing 3 Balearics a bit risky. Maybe Rome planned for an elephant to be on the field, but I think 3 Balearics are overkill, and I think with max 8 melee units, I think it's a bit risky to bring the legionary cohort. I certainly wouldn't have brought three legionary cohort. Probably would have brought more veteran legionaries. Under the use it lose it rules, the Hellenic factions are slightly better because they can bring the hoplites. And hoplites are better against infantry than, say, triarii. So I think if this was me against Epirus, I probably would have just gone super safe. And let's see, yeah, the legionary cav over the equites. I probably would have brought legionary cavalry, to be honest. Let's see here what I would have done. Gladiator spears, not a bad choice actually under these rules, because they are cheap, they are good versus cavalry, they have killing spree. So maybe some gladiator spears, or even some very cheap auxiliary infantry. For the elephant, an auxiliary Syrian archer or 2. And then let's see, legionary cav. 4 legionary cav. Take out the, let's see here, 1 equite. Maybe something like this. Maybe even just an auxiliary Syrian archer. Maybe just gladiator spears. Something in the neighborhood of this, probably, since melee units are limited. I think it would be a good idea, and triarii could be warranted, but in this case, going too wide for Rome meant that the shock, going too wide and only having basically a single line of infantry, meant that Rome was defeated by cavalry and then the follow-up infantry charges. And this is why spreading out wide isn't always the best thing to do unless you have multiple lines of infantry. So in this case, Blood Leopard got punished in no small part because he spread out too thin and didn't have support for his infantry units. And defeating Epirus versus Rome should, defeating Rome as Epirus should make AK very confident in the coming battles. This is the best of 5, so let's see what happens. Strength and honor.